Have you ever seen someone try to destroy another person's self-worth, only for it to backfire in the most spectacular way imaginable? This isn't a fairy tale. This is the story of Emily Vance, a woman whose ex-husband turned their divorce into a public spectacle. He flaunted his new younger bride like a trophy, making sure Emily heard every detail of his supposed upgrade. He thought he had buried her in shame, but he made one critical mistake. He never realized who she truly was. What happens when the woman he threw away doesn't just get back on her feet, but rises so high that she ends up marrying the one man he could never hope to be? Stay tuned. Emily Vance once believed her life was a portrait of success. She was married to Michael Sterling, a charismatic and ambitious investment banker whose star was rapidly ascending at Morgan Stanley. They lived in a sleek, minimalist apartment in Tribeca with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a city that felt like theirs to conquer. To their friends, to their families, and especially to Michael's snobbish parents, Gloria and Robert Sterling, they were the perfect couple. He the financial prodigy, she the brilliant architect who had put her own budding firm on hold to support his demanding career and curate their perfect life. The cracks, however, had been forming for years, so fine and subtle that Emily had explained them away as stress. Michael's compliments became critiques disguised as advice. "That dress is lovely, Ellie, but a bit artistic, don't you think? You want to project power, not whimsy." Her design ideas for their home were dismissed as not the right aesthetic for our brand. Their brand. That's what their marriage had become. The end came not with a bang, but with the cold, sterile click of a closing laptop. Michael came home one Tuesday evening, his posture radiating a chilling calm. He didn't even take off his Tom Ford coat. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, standing by the door as if he were a visitor. She was sketching at their Marble Island, a new community art center she was designing pro bono. "Okay," she said, putting her pencil down. "Tough day at the office." "My life is about to change." Drastically, he announced, his voice devoid of warmth. "I've been seeing someone. Her name is Tiffany Chamberlain, and I'm leaving you for her." The words hung in the air, sharp and poisonous. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Tiffany Chamberlain. The Instagram model, Michael. "She's 23. A smirk played on his lips. "She's 24, and she understands the kind of life I'm building. The visibility, the networking. She's an asset." He looked around the apartment she had so lovingly designed. "I'll be generous, of course. My lawyer will be in touch." The divorce was a public execution. Michael, it turned out, hadn't just been seeing Tiffany. He had been parading her around New York's elite social scene for months. Friends who had smiled at Emily at galas last month were now tagged in Instagram photos with Michael and Tiffany clinking champagne glasses on a yacht in the Hamptons. The captions were nauseating. New beginnings. Power couple. Upgrade. Michael made sure Emily saw every post. He didn't block her. He wanted her to watch. He wanted her to see Tiffany wearing a Cartier bracelet he'd once promised Emily for their 10th anniversary. He wanted her to see the glowing feature in a society magazine about Wall Street's hottest new couple, complete with a photo shoot in their apartment. The article painted Emily as a footnote, the starter wife who couldn't keep up with his meteoric rise. The worst part was the small, intimate betrayals. He weaponized their shared memories against her. He took Tiffany to Per Se, the restaurant where he had proposed to Emily, and posted a photo of their hands intertwined on the table, Tiffany sporting a new, impossibly large diamond. The caption read, "Finally getting it right." His parents, Gloria and Robert, were equally cruel. Gloria called Emily once not to offer condolences, but to twist the knife. "Well, Emily, dear," she'd said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Michael just needs someone who shines a bit brighter. Tiffany is just so vibrant, you know. She has over 2 million followers. It's wonderful for his business." Emily moved out of the Tribeca apartment and into a small third-floor walk-up in the West Village. The silence of the small space was deafening, broken only by the city sounds outside and the frantic supportive calls from her best friend Chloe. "He's a monster, Emily." A narcissistic, soulless monster, Chloe would rage through the phone. "You are a prize, and he was too stupid to see it." But Emily didn't feel like a prize. She felt discarded. Michael's campaign of humiliation was working. She started avoiding their old haunts, stopped checking her social media, and shrank into herself. He had taken her love, her home, her confidence, and her future, and replaced it all with a bright, shiny younger model, ensuring the whole world watched as he did it. He wasn't just breaking up with her. He was trying to erase her, to paint her as the drab black and white photo before his new life in vibrant Technicolor. And for a long time, sitting alone in her tiny apartment surrounded by moving boxes she had no energy to unpack, Emily started to believe him. The first few months post-divorce were a gray fog. Emily felt like a ghost haunting the edges of a life that was no longer hers. Every corner of New York seemed to hold a memory of Michael, a shared laugh in a coffee shop, a stolen kiss under a street lamp in Central Park, a celebratory dinner in a now forbidden restaurant. His digital ghost was even more relentless. Friends with well-meaning but clumsy intentions would bring him up. "Did you see Michael and Tiffany are in Aspen?" Or "I can't believe he bought her that Birkin bag." Each mention was a fresh stab. Chloe, a fiery art gallery curator with zero tolerance for nonsense, became Emily's gatekeeper. "Listen up," Chloe declared one evening, snatching a pint of ice cream from Emily's hands and replacing it with a glass of wine. "The pity party is officially over. We are not letting that slick-haired, soulless Ken doll win. Your name is Emily Vance. You were a rising star at Columbia's School of Architecture before you decided to project manage his ego. It's time to get back to you." Chloe was right. Michael had convinced her that his world was the world, that success was measured in stock prices, gala invitations, and the reflective shine of a new Rolex. He had made her feel small, artistic, and impractical. But in the quiet of her new apartment, away from his judgment, Emily slowly began to find herself again. She unpacked the boxes not with a sense of loss for the home she'd left, but with a budding excitement for the one she could create. She pulled out her old sketchbooks, her drafting tools, her architectural models. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light as she unrolled blueprints for projects she had dreamed up years ago, a sustainable library that integrated nature into its very core, a series of modular, affordable homes for low-income families, a soaring glass atrium for a museum. These weren't just buildings, they were her soul, translated into structure and form. For 5 years they had been gathering dust under the weight of Michael's ambition. She started small. She took on a minor renovation project for a friend of Chloe's, a cramped south of Houston Street loft that needed light and life. Emily poured all her pent-up creativity into it. She knocked down a non-structural wall, designed custom shelving that climbed to the ceiling like a vine, and found a way to install a massive skylight that flooded the space with sunshine. The result was transformative. Her work was more than just good, it was inspired. The loft owner was ecstatic and recommended her to a colleague who then recommended her to another. A trickle of work became a steady stream. Emily established a small LLC, Vance Designs. She built a simple, elegant website showcasing her work, her philosophy clear in every line. "We don't just build spaces. We create environments where people can thrive." One evening, while working late on a set of blueprints, her phone buzzed with a notification. Against her better judgment, she glanced at it. It was a tag from a distant cousin. The photo was of Michael and Tiffany beaming on the cover of Modern Engagements magazine. The headline read, "A sterling match finance king, Michael Sterling and influencer Tiffany Chamberlain, plan the wedding of the decade." The article was a masterpiece of curated arrogance. Michael bragged about the venue, the Oheka Castle on Long Island. He bragged about Tiffany's custom-designed 8-carat diamond ring. He bragged about their plans for a 6-week honeymoon, circumnavigating the globe on a private jet. But one quote attributed to an unnamed friend struck Emily like a physical blow. "Michael is finally with someone who matches his ambition and his lifestyle." His ex-wife was a lovely girl but very quiet. More of a homebody. He needs a star on his arm, and Tiffany is a supernova. The old familiar shame coiled in her stomach. A homebody. Quiet. The words were designed to paint her as a failure, a domestic creature unfit for the dazzling world he now inhabited. She closed the browser, her hands trembling. For a moment she felt herself sliding back into the gray fog. But then she looked at the blueprint spread across her desk. She saw the clean lines, the innovative concepts, the life she was building with her own two hands and her own mind. He could have his supernova. Supernovas were brilliant, yes, but they were also violent, explosive, and ultimately they collapsed into nothing. Emily preferred to build things that lasted. With a newfound resolve, she turned back to her work. That night, she didn't just work on her current project. She dusted off an old ambitious design from her college thesis. A revolutionary concept for a private residence built into a cliffside, a marvel of engineering and aesthetics that respected and integrated the natural landscape. It was bold, impossible, and beautiful. On a whim, she decided to submit it to the prestigious International Architectural Design Awards. The chances of winning were infinitesimal. But for the first time in a very long time, Emily Vance wasn't afraid of the odds. She was building her own foundation, one blueprint at a time. 6 months passed. Vance Designs was thriving in its own modest way. Emily had hired a junior designer and moved into a small but chic studio space in Chelsea. She was making a name for herself in New York's design circles for her innovative use of space and her uncanny ability to infuse soul into steel and glass. She was busy, fulfilled, and had managed to build a wall of professional focus around her heart. Michael and his upcoming nuptials became a dull background noise she could mostly tune out. Then one crisp autumn afternoon, an email landed in her inbox that felt like a glitch in the matrix. The subject line was simple: inquiry regarding your Aerie design. Emily's heart hammered against her ribs. Aerie was the name she had given her cliffside residence project, the one she had submitted to the design awards. She hadn't won the grand prize, but the design had been featured on the competition's website as a notable entry. She had assumed that was the end of it. The email was from an Arthur Pendleton executive assistant to Mr. Julian Thorne. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. The message was concise and professional. Ms. Vance, Mr. Julian Thorne has seen your design concept, Aerie, and was exceptionally impressed with its vision and harmony with the natural environment. He is seeking to commission a private residence on a property he owns in Big Sur, California, and believes your design philosophy aligns perfectly with his own. He would like to schedule a meeting with you to discuss the possibility of a commission. Please let me know your availability. Sincerely, Arthur Pendleton, Office of Julian Thorne. Emily's hands shook as she typed Julian Thorne into her search engine. The results made her gasp. Julian Thorne wasn't just wealthy. He was in a different stratosphere of existence. He was the reclusive founder and CEO of Ethelred Technologies, a pioneer in sustainable energy and AI. He was a multi-billionaire, but unlike the flashy tech moguls of Silicon Valley, Thorne was intensely private. There were few photos of him online, mostly grainy paparazzi shots of him boarding a private jet or attending a tech conference years ago. He was known for his philanthropic work in environmental conservation and for his almost fanatical dedication to privacy. This man, this titan of industry, had seen her design, and he wanted to talk to her. A week later, Emily found herself in a town car winding its way through the financial district to a sleek, unmarked skyscraper that housed Ethelred's headquarters. She wore her most professional outfit, a sharp, tailored black suit that felt like armor. She clutched her portfolio to her chest, her mind racing. This was the kind of project architects dreamed of. It could launch her career into the stratosphere. She was escorted to the top floor, a space that was the antithesis of Michael's ostentatious world. There was no gold, no marble, no flashy art. The space was a testament to quiet luxury and natural materials. Warm oak floors, walls of glass overlooking the city, and simple, elegant furniture. Arthur Pendleton, a kind-faced man in his 60s, greeted her warmly and led her to a minimalist conference room. "Mr. Thorne will be with you shortly." Moments later, the door opened, and Julian Thorne walked in. He was not what she expected. He was tall and lean, perhaps in his early 40s, with thoughtful dark eyes and a quiet intensity about him. He wore a simple gray sweater and dark jeans, no suit, no tie, no watch. He looked more like a philosophy professor than a billionaire CEO. "Ms. Vance," he said, his voice a low, calm baritone. He shook her hand. His grip was firm and his smile was genuine. "Thank you for coming. I apologize for the summons to my office. I find it's the only place I can guarantee a lack of interruption." "It's an honor, Mr. Thorne," Emily said, finding her professional voice. "Please call me Julian." He gestured for her to sit and took the seat directly across from her, not at the head of the table. "I saw your Aerie design and I was captivated. Most modern architecture feels like an imposition on the landscape, an act of ego. Yours felt like a conversation with it." For the next hour, they didn't talk about budgets or timelines. They talked about architecture. They talked about the Japanese concept of shake or borrowed scenery. They talked about the importance of natural light and sustainable materials. Julian was incredibly knowledgeable, speaking with a quiet passion that mirrored her own. He saw everything in her design that she had intended. The respect for the environment, the flow of energy, the creation of a sanctuary, not a spectacle. He saw what Michael had called whimsy and recognized it as vision. "The property in Big Sur is special to me," Julian said, his gaze distant for a moment. "It's been in my family for generations. It's a place of peace. I want to build a home there, not a monument. A place to think, a place to be." He looked directly at her. "I believe you are the only person who can build it." Emily left the meeting in a daze. He hadn't just offered her the commission, he had offered her a partnership in creation. The budget he proposed was staggering, giving her complete creative freedom and access to the best materials and engineers in the world. That night, as she began the preliminary sketches for the Big Sur residence, an embossed cream-colored envelope arrived by messenger. It was thick and heavy. Her heart sank as she recognized the Sterling family crest on the wax seal. It was the wedding invitation. "Michael Sterling and Tiffany Chamberlain request the pleasure of your company at the celebration of their marriage." Inside, a small handwritten note was tucked in, penned in Gloria Sterling's perfect cutting script. "Emily, dear, I do hope you'll come. It would show such good grace. We all need to move on after all. Besides, you simply must see Tiffany's dress. Warmly, Gloria." It was a command performance. A summons to witness her final complete replacement. 2 months ago, it would have shattered her. But tonight, as Emily pinned the invitation to her corkboard, she felt a strange sense of calm. She looked from the ostentatious, gaudy invitation to the elegant simplicity of her new project sketches. One was a world of performance and public image. The other was a world of substance and quiet creation. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was on the outside looking in. She felt like she had been liberated. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of creativity and intense focus. Emily flew to Big Sur twice to walk the stunning, rugged coastline with Julian. The property was even more breathtaking than she had imagined, a dramatic cliff overlooking the crashing waves of the Pacific surrounded by ancient cypress trees. Her collaboration with Julian was unlike any professional experience she'd ever had. He was deeply involved but never controlling. He would ask insightful questions that pushed her designs to be better, more innovative. They spent hours on video calls, not just discussing floor plans and structural engineering, but philosophy, art, and what it truly means to create a home. He listened to her, truly listened, with an attentiveness that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't realized she'd been missing for years. During one late-night call while they were debating the specific type of reclaimed timber to use, Emily found herself laughing freely at a dry joke he made. She paused, surprised by the sound. When was the last time she had laughed like that? "Is everything all right?" Julian asked, a flicker of concern in his eyes. "Yes," she said, a genuine smile gracing her lips. "Everything is perfect. I'm enjoying this. The work, the process. It's reminding me of why I fell in love with architecture in the first place." "Good," he said, his own smile soft and genuine. "Your passion for it is what makes the design extraordinary." The compliment was simple, direct, and landed in her heart with a warmth that had nothing to do with validation and everything to do with genuine respect. It was the polar opposite of Michael's backhanded praise. As the wedding date loomed, Chloe was adamant. "You are not going to that circus alone. I'm coming with you. We'll be fabulous unbothered, and we will leave the second anyone says anything stupid, which will probably be within the first 5 minutes." Emily agreed. She knew she had to go. Not showing up would be seen as weakness, as proof that she was too broken to face them. Showing up composed and confident was the only way to truly close that chapter. She bought a dress, a stunning midnight blue silk gown, that was elegant, understated, and fit her perfectly. It wasn't flashy or revealing. It spoke of quiet confidence, the very quality Gloria Sterling had once dismissed. The wedding at Oheka Castle was exactly the spectacle Emily had expected. It was a hurricane of white roses, ice sculptures, and shimmering gold accents. Tiffany, in a massive jewel-encrusted dress, looked less like a bride and more like a pageant winner. Michael was in his element, preening in his custom tuxedo, greeting guests with an owner's pride as if he had personally invented marriage. He spotted Emily and Chloe across the ballroom and made a beeline for them, Tiffany in tow like a prize show dog. "Emily, I'm so glad you could make it," he said, his voice booming with false magnanimity. "It means so much that there are no hard feelings." He wrapped his arm possessively around Tiffany's tiny waist. "Have you met my wife, Tiffany?" "We haven't been formally introduced," Emily said, her voice even and calm. She met Tiffany's gaze. The younger woman looked slightly nervous up close, her smile a little too bright. "Congratulations." The ceremony was beautiful. "Thank you," Tiffany gushed. "Isn't this place just a dream? Michael planned everything. He's just so capable." "The best or nothing, right?" Ellie Michael said, using the old condescending pet name. "Speaking of, I heard you're doing some small renovation projects now." "That's great. Good for you for keeping busy." The jab was meant to sting, to remind her of her smallness in his grand world. Chloe's hand tightened on Emily's arm, ready to intervene, but Emily was unshaken. "I am keeping busy," Emily replied smoothly, a serene smile on her face. "My firm is doing very well, thank you." Before Michael could press further, Gloria Sterling descended upon them. "Emily, darling, you look nice," she said, her eyes doing a quick dismissive scan of Emily's dress. "So brave of you to come. Now you must excuse us. The photographer wants some shots of the happy couple with the CEO of Goldman Sachs." As they swept away, Chloe muttered, "I think I'm going to be sick." Emily just shook her head, a genuine small laugh escaping her. "It's okay, Chloe. It's all just noise." And for the first time she believed it. Seeing Michael in his natural habitat, so desperate for external validation, so obsessed with the performance of happiness, she didn't feel sadness or jealousy. She felt a profound sense of pity. They stayed for one drink, and then, as promised, made a graceful exit. As they waited for their car, Emily's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I heard tonight might be difficult. Just remember that what you are creating in Big Sur will outlast every champagne tower and ice sculpture there. It has substance. You have substance." Emily stared at the screen, her heart doing a slow, surprising flip. Julian. He must have gotten her number from Arthur. He had thought of her tonight of all nights. His simple private message of support meant more to her than any public display of affection ever had. It was a quiet acknowledgment of her worth, a whisper of a new world that had nothing to do with the loud, hollow spectacle she was leaving behind. Looking back at the garish lights of the castle, Emily realized she wasn't escaping a painful memory. She was simply leaving a party she had no interest in attending anymore. Her future was waiting perched on a cliffside in Big Sur, bathed in the quiet, steady light of the Pacific sun. Autumn bled into winter, and the Big Sur project, officially named the Thorne Residence, became Emily's magnificent obsession. The designs were finalized. The engineering challenges met with brilliant solutions, and the initial groundwork had begun. Her professional relationship with Julian deepened into a genuine friendship. They discovered a shared love for obscure literature, minimalist art, and long walks. He visited New York more frequently, and their business meetings often bled into dinners at quiet, out-of-the-way restaurants where they would talk for hours. Emily found herself drawn to his calm, insightful nature. He never bragged about his wealth or success. Instead, he spoke about his responsibilities, his desire to leave a positive impact on the world, and his genuine curiosity about her perspective. With him, she felt not like an accessory, but an equal. The attraction between them was a palpable, unspoken current growing stronger with each meeting. It was slow, respectful, and utterly real. Meanwhile, Michael and Tiffany Sterling were on a relentless PR tour of their own marriage. Their social media was a fire hose of curated bliss, skiing in Gstaad, shopping on the Avenue Montaigne in Paris, sunbathing in the Maldives. Michael was frequently quoted in financial columns, and he always found a way to mention his stunning and supportive wife, Tiffany. He was building his brand, and his marriage was the cornerstone. The collision of these two worlds was inevitable. It happened at the annual Metropolitan Museum of Art Conservation Gala, the undisputed pinnacle of New York's philanthropic scene. It was the one event Julian attended every year, as he was the primary benefactor. This year he had asked Emily to be his guest. "As the architect of my most important project, it's only fitting you be there," he'd said, though the look in his eyes suggested a deeper meaning. Emily accepted, her heart fluttering with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She knew Michael and Tiffany would be there. It would be their first public encounter since the wedding. When Julian arrived at her apartment to pick her up, she was momentarily breathless. He was in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, looking impossibly handsome and sophisticated. But it was his smile, warm and meant only for her, that made her feel truly beautiful. "Emily," he said, his voice soft with admiration. "You look exquisite." She was wearing a deep emerald green gown, a color that brought out the light in her eyes. It was a classic, elegant design by a lesser-known designer she admired. It was a dress that whispered confidence. It didn't scream for attention. Their arrival at the Met was quiet and understated. Julian, valuing his privacy, used a discreet entrance, bypassing the main crush of paparazzi on the red carpet. Inside, however, they were instantly the center of a very powerful universe. Captains of industry, famed artists, and old-money philanthropists greeted Julian with deference and warmth, and they all looked at Emily with intense curiosity. Julian introduced her simply and with evident pride. "This is Emily Vance, a brilliant architect." They were enjoying a glass of champagne near the Temple of Dendur when a familiar grating voice cut through the sophisticated buzz. "Well, well, well. Look who's here." Michael Sterling stood before them, a wide, predatory grin on his face. Tiffany was on his arm, dripping in diamonds and a gaudy, feathered Versace gown that seemed to be wearing her. Ellie, Michael said, his eyes flicking over her dress with a hint of a sneer. "I almost didn't recognize you," trying a new look. He then turned his full attention to Julian, extending a hand. "Michael Sterling, Morgan Stanley. We haven't been properly introduced, Mr. Thorne. It's a real honor. My wife Tiffany is a huge admirer of your work in technology." Julian shook his hand briefly, his expression unreadable. "Sterling? Yes. I've seen your name." Michael puffed up with pride. "Oh, well, great to hear. We're really making waves in the emerging markets division." He then gestured towards Emily with a dismissive wave of his hand. I was just so surprised to see my ex-wife here. Small world, right? She's more of the quiet stay-at-home type. I've been trying to encourage her to get out more since our split. The condescension was thick enough to cut with a knife. He was painting a picture for Julian. This is my cast-off, a simple girl you found who is out of her depth. He was trying to establish dominance to reclaim Emily as a character in his story. Emily felt a flush of anger, but before she could speak, Julian moved slightly, placing a subtle protective hand on the small of her back. The gesture was both intimate and commanding. I believe you're mistaken, Mr. Sterling, Julian said, his voice calm but laced with steel. Ms. Vance is not the stay-at-home type. She is in fact the creative visionary behind my new residence in Big Sur. It's the most ambitious private architectural project in North America right now. A stunned silence fell over their small group. Michael's jaw went slack. He knew the rumors of the mysterious Thorne residence. It was the talk of the financial and architectural worlds, a project with a seemingly unlimited budget shrouded in secrecy. To be the architect on that project wasn't just a job, it was a career-defining coronation. Julian wasn't finished. He looked at Emily, his expression softening into one of genuine affection. And she is not here because I am encouraging her to get out more. She is here as my partner. He didn't need to say more. The word partner hung in the air, electric and definitive. It was a quiet checkmate. In one calm, devastating statement, Julian had not only annihilated Michael's narrative, but had elevated Emily to a level of prestige Michael could only dream of. Michael's face, which had been a mask of smug superiority, crumbled. He stared at Emily as if seeing her for the first time not as his mousy ex-wife, but as the architect of the legendary Thorne residence, and the partner of the man everyone in this room revered. He saw the beautiful, confident woman in the emerald dress, and for the first time a flicker of horrified realization crossed his face. He hadn't just discarded her, he had misjudged her value on a catastrophic scale. Tiffany, sensing the sudden dramatic shift in power, looked confused. The Thorne residence weight is that the one Architectural Digest is calling the eighth wonder of the modern world. Julian smiled down at Emily, ignoring Tiffany completely. Shall we go find our table? He murmured for her ears only. As he guided her away, leaving Michael and Tiffany standing there in stunned, humiliated silence, Emily felt a profound sense of release. It wasn't the thrill of revenge. It was the quiet, powerful joy of being seen, respected, and valued for exactly who she was. The king had been toppled not by a loud declaration of war, but by the simple, undeniable truth. The aftermath of the Met Gala was a silent, deadly shockwave that radiated through Michael Sterling's carefully constructed world. The news of Emily Vance, visionary architect of the Thorne residence, and Julian Thorne's new partner spread through New York's elite circles like wildfire. It was the ultimate society gossip, a story so rich with irony and reversal of fortune that it was irresistible. For Michael, the humiliation was acute and relentless. At work, colleagues who once fawned over him now looked at him with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. The Sterling name, which he had worked so hard to associate with success and power, was now the punchline to a citywide joke, the guy who traded a masterpiece for a knockoff. His boss, a man who valued perception above all else, called him into his office for a chat about his public profile. The implication was clear. Michael's brand was now toxic. His parents were mortified. Gloria Sterling called him her voice, a hysterical whisper. Michael, what have you done? Everyone is talking. The Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers. They're all asking about Emily. They think we're fools, that we cast out a diamond and kept the zirconia. But the most significant damage was happening within the walls of his own Tribeca apartment. The foundation of his marriage to Tiffany, built as it was on the shallow bedrock of status and image, began to crumble immediately. Tiffany's identity was intrinsically linked to being the ultimate upgrade. She had won the prize. The Met Gala shattered that illusion. She had been publicly revealed not as the winner but as the consolation prize. The man she married, whom she believed to be a titan, had been effortlessly dwarfed and dismissed by a true giant. "How could you not tell me who she was working for?" she shrieked at him the night of the gala, her feathered dress now looking ridiculous in their sterile living room. "You made me look like an idiot. You stood there bragging about your job while she's literally building a landmark with Julian Thorne. How was I supposed to know?" Michael shot back, his frustration boiling over. "She was designing closets and loft renovations. It doesn't make any sense." "No, what doesn't make sense is you," Tiffany retorted, her perfectly made-up face contorted with fury. "You told me she was a nobody, a quiet, boring little homebody. But she's the one at the table with the billionaires, and I'm the one you're dragging around like a handbag." Their arguments became a daily occurrence. Tiffany's admiration for Michael, which had always been tied to his perceived power and status, evaporated. She now saw him through the world's new eyes as the man who had fumbled the ultimate prize. She grew resentful, her posts on social media becoming less about their hashtag couple goals and more about her solo shopping sprees and spa days. The we of their brand was dissolving into a very bitter me. Michael, in turn, began to look at Tiffany and see not a supernova, but a black hole of expense and superficiality. He saw the endless bills for clothes bags and treatments. He heard the vapid conversations about influencers and brand deals. He compared her obsession with selfies and follower counts to his memory of Emily sketching quietly at their island, lost in a world of creation and ideas. The ghost of Emily haunted him. He started to remember things he had long since buried: the intelligence in her eyes when she talked about her designs, her quiet strength, the way she could create warmth and beauty out of nothing. He had called it whimsy, dismissed it as impractical. Now he saw it for what it was. Genius. A genius he had thrown away because it didn't fit into the narrow, boring box he had labeled success. He became obsessed. He scoured the internet for articles about Emily and the Thorne residence. He saw the accolades, the praise from the world's most respected architectural critics. He saw photographs of her and Julian, candid shots of them laughing on the Big Sur site, looking at each other with an easy intimacy that he and Tiffany had never once managed to fake for the camera. The final nail in the coffin of his marriage came a few months later. A deal Michael had been counting on at work, a major stepping stone to a promotion, fell through. He later found out through a colleague that the primary investor had pulled out after a private dinner with Julian Thorne, where Thorne had casually mentioned that any associate of Michael Sterling's was, in his opinion, a man of questionable judgment. Julian never had to say why. He didn't have to lift a finger in anger. His quiet disapproval was a more effective weapon than any overt act of revenge. That night, Michael came home to find Tiffany's closets empty. A single perfectly manicured note was left on the marble island next to a copy of the latest issue of Vanity Fair. On the cover was Emily Vance standing in front of a breathtaking photo of the half-finished Big Sur house under the headline, "The Architect of the Future. How Emily Vance is Redefining American Design." Tiffany's note was short. "I'm going to my mother's in Palm Beach. My lawyer will be in touch." Michael Sterling stood alone in the silent, empty apartment that Emily had once filled with life. He was a king in a kingdom of one. He had bragged to the world about his beautiful bride and his perfect life, and now he had lost it all. Not because Emily had sought revenge, but because she had simply moved on and embraced her own worth, a worth so immense that its light had cast his entire world into shadow. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was the sound of his own spectacular failure. 2 years later, the Thorne residence was complete. It wasn't just a house, it was a masterpiece. Cantilevered over the Pacific, it seemed to float between sea and sky, a perfect fusion of natural materials and futuristic design. The home was featured in every major architectural publication worldwide, winning Emily the prestigious Pritzker Architecture Prize, the highest honor in her field. Vance Designs was now an internationally sought-after firm with a long wait list of discerning clients. But Emily's greatest triumph was not professional. It was personal, quiet, and deeply profound. Her relationship with Julian had blossomed into a deep and abiding love. They were partners in every sense of the word. He celebrated her successes as if they were his own, and provided a steady grounding presence that allowed her creative spirit to soar. She in turn brought warmth, laughter, and a new perspective into his structured private world. Their wedding was the antithesis of Michael and Tiffany's ostentatious affair. They were married on the terrace of the completed Big Sur home as the sun set over the Pacific. There were only 30 guests, close family, and their truest friends, including a beaming Chloe as the maid of honor. Emily designed her own dress, a simple flowing silk gown that was as elegant and timeless as her architecture. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising not a lifetime of performance, but one of partnership, respect, and quiet joy. There was no society photographer, no magazine deal. The only announcement was a simple post on the Vance Designs website a week later, with a single photo, their hands now adorned with simple wedding bands clasped together against the backdrop of the ocean. Emily rarely thought of Michael anymore. He was a figure from a past life, a lesson learned. She had heard through the grapevine that his divorce from Tiffany had been messy and expensive. He had lost his promotion at Morgan Stanley and eventually took a lesser position at a smaller, less prestigious firm in Chicago, effectively exiled from the New York financial world he had once worshipped. His star had not just faded, it had been extinguished. On occasion she would feel a fleeting sense of pity for him, for a man so blinded by ego that he couldn't see the real value in anything, including himself. One evening Emily and Julian were sitting by the outdoor fire pit at their home, a gentle breeze coming off the ocean. She was leaning against his shoulder, sketching in her notebook not for a client, but for pleasure. She was designing a small free community library for the nearby town of Carmel. "What are you creating now?" Julian asked, his voice a soft rumble against her ear. "Something small," she said, smiling. "Something for people to share." He kissed the top of her head. "My brilliant wife. You build worlds, Emily, whether they're out of glass and steel on a cliffside or out of paper and ink for a small town." In that moment, Emily felt a sense of peace so complete it felt like coming home. Her triumph was not that she had married a billionaire. That was simply a beautiful consequence of finding a man who saw her. Her real victory was that she had rebuilt her life on her own terms, according to her own blueprint. Michael had tried to tear her down and brag about the rubble, but he had failed to understand a fundamental principle of architecture: a strong foundation can withstand any storm. And from the ashes of her old life, Emily Vance had not just built a house. She had built an empire of her own happiness. Life at Big Sur settled into a rhythm of breathtaking beauty and profound peace. For Emily, the past was no longer a shadow that followed her, but a closed book on a distant shelf gathering dust. Her days were filled with light, both literal and metaphorical. She and Julian had founded the Thorne Vance Foundation, a philanthropic venture dedicated to funding sustainable architecture and protecting natural landscapes worldwide. Emily poured her soul into it, scouting projects, mentoring young architects, and using her platform to champion a new generation of design that was both beautiful and responsible. Her marriage was a sanctuary. With Julian, she discovered the quiet power of a partnership built on mutual intellectual curiosity and unwavering emotional support. Their love wasn't a spectacle for public consumption. It was 1,000 small private moments, debating a book over breakfast, hiking the cypress trails behind their home. In comfortable silence, his hand finding hers as they watched the fog roll in from the Pacific. She was happy in a way so complete and foundational that the brittle, performative life she'd led with Michael seemed like a story about someone else entirely. The echo from that old life arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, carried on the agitated voice of her best friend. "Emily, are you sitting down?" Chloe asked, her tone stripped of its usual sarcastic levity. Emily was in her studio, the glass walls offering an uninterrupted view of the ocean. She put down her charcoal pencil. "I am now, Chloe. What's wrong?" You sound rattled. There was a hesitant pause. He found me, Chloe said, her voice low. Michael, he's here, in New York. He reached out to the gallery, said it was a matter of life and death. I met him. God, Emily, I don't know why I met him, but I did. A cold dread, unfamiliar and unwelcome, trickled down Emily's spine. She hadn't spoken Michael's name or heard it spoken in her presence in over 3 years. What did he want? To talk about you, Chloe said, her voice laced with a mixture of disgust and a strange, unsettling pity. Emily, he's a wreck, a complete and utter disaster. He looks 10 years older. His suit was cheap, it was fraying at the cuffs. He's lost everything. The job in Chicago didn't last. He apparently made a series of terrible high-risk investments trying to make a big comeback and got wiped out. The Sterlings cut him off completely after the second divorce. He's been living in some rundown apartment in Queens selling insurance or something equally grim. Emily remained silent, her mind struggling to process the image. The slick, arrogant man in the Tom Ford coat was gone, replaced by this pathetic phantom. He sat there in a coffee shop in south of Houston Street. Chloe continued, her voice gaining a harder edge, and he started talking about the old days, about how he was a fool, how he was blinded by ego. He said he reads every article about you, that he's so proud of everything you've accomplished. He cried, Emily. Actual tears. Said you were the only real thing in his life, and he threw it all away. What does he want, Chloe? Emily repeated, her voice firm, cutting through the emotional preamble. There it was. The real reason. He didn't ask for money. Chloe admitted. He's too proud, or maybe just too manipulative for that. He wants a recommendation, a second chance. He heard the foundation is backing a new sustainable urban development project in Chicago, a massive one. He wants you to put in a good word for him, to help him get a meeting with the developers. He said he just needs one break to get back on his feet, to prove he's a changed man. Emily closed her eyes, the sound of the distant waves filling the silence. The audacity of it was breathtaking. After a campaign of public humiliation, after attempting to systematically destroy her self-worth, he was now appealing to the very grace and decency he had tried to extinguish. He wasn't asking for a handout. He was asking her to leverage her hard-won success, the very success built from the ashes of the life he torched, to salvage his own. Do not respond to him again, Emily said, her voice a calm, cold blade. Don't take his calls. Don't answer his emails. Send him to me. Emily, no, Chloe protested. You don't owe him the time of day. Let me just tell him to get lost. He won't stop until he hears it from me, Emily stated with certainty. He's banking on the idea that I'm still the same woman he can manipulate. I need to close the door myself. For good. That evening she told Julian everything. He listened patiently, his dark eyes watching her, gauging her reaction. When she finished, he didn't offer advice. He simply asked, What does your heart tell you to do? My heart tells me he's a black hole, and getting too close means getting pulled in, she said honestly. But there's this stupid, nagging voice that feels a sliver of pity for the man he's become. Pity is a noble emotion, Emily, Julian said, taking her hand. But it should not be a leash that allows your past to drag you back. His current situation is the direct result of 1,000 choices he made. You are not one of those choices anymore. Your only obligation is to your own peace. She knew he was right. The next day, she sent Michael a single terse email from a new address created specifically for the purpose. Michael, Chloe passed on your message. I am willing to have one and only one 5-minute phone call with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time. You will call my assistant's number. This will be our final communication. The next morning she sat in her studio, Julian by her side, but out of frame of the video call she had initiated with her assistant Arthur, who would connect Michael. The call came through precisely at 10 a.m. Michael's face appeared on the screen. Chloe had been kind in her description. He looked haggard, his face puffy and pale. The old confidence was gone, replaced by a desperate, hungry look. He was in a dimly lit room that was clearly not an office. "Emily," he breathed, his voice cracking. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. You look incredible. Happy." "I have 4 minutes, Michael," she said, her tone devoid of emotion. "What do you want?" The directness clearly threw him. He stammered, then launched into the same speech he'd given Chloe. The apologies, the regrets, the self-flagellation. He was performing the role of the penitent man. Emily let him speak for 2 minutes, then cut him off. "You want a recommendation for the Chicago project?" "Yes," he said, his eyes lighting up with hope. "Just a word, Emily. An introduction. From you it would mean everything. It would give me a chance to atone, to build something real again." She looked at him, at the ghost of the man she once loved, and felt a profound and final clarity. He hadn't changed at all. He didn't want to atone. He wanted a shortcut. He still saw her not as a person, but as a resource to be exploited, first her support, now her success. "No," she said. The word was quiet, but it landed with the force of a landslide. What he whispered, his face falling. "No, Michael. I will not be giving you a recommendation. I will not be making an introduction. The life I have built is a testament to what a person can achieve with their own merit when they are free of toxic influences. Your path back, if there is one, must be the same. It must be your own. You want to build something real. Then start from the foundation. Get a job. Work hard. Be honest. Earn your way back. That is the only atonement that matters." Desperation flooded his face. "Emily, please, I'm asking for your help. After everything we shared." "What we shared is over," she stated, her voice unwavering. "And my help would be a disservice to you. It would be one more unearned prize for a man who has never understood the value of anything he didn't acquire easily. My final gift to you, Michael, is the truth. Your life is your responsibility. Goodbye." Before he could respond, she ended the call. The screen went black. A deep, shuddering breath escaped her. She had not been cruel. She had been definitive. She had offered him not the help he wanted, but the advice he needed. Julian's hand came to rest on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Emily turned to him, a slow, genuine smile spreading across her face. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, but it was not a tear of sadness. It was a tear of release. "I am now," she said. "I'm finally completely free." The echo had faded, and all that was left was the sound of the ocean and the steady, reassuring beat of her own peaceful heart. And so Emily's story isn't one of revenge. It's a powerful testament to the fact that the greatest success is living well and true to yourself. Michael Sterling thought worth was measured by public opinion, by the flashiness of a new partner. But Emily proved that true value is intrinsic. It's in your talent, your passion, your integrity. While he was busy writing captions, she was busy building a legacy. In the end, he became a forgotten footnote in her incredible story. What do you think is the most powerful form of comeback? Is it loud and vengeful, or is it the quiet, undeniable success that speaks for itself? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If Emily's journey from heartbreak to triumph inspired you, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories of empowerment and unexpected victory. Thank you for watching.